Shahrazad Ali. You've seen her on Donahue.
And it's every black man's right to slap a black woman in the mouth.
You've seen her on Sally Jesse Raphael.
Oh, mine. A black woman should not complain about sharing her black man. Don't deny you denying it. See, that's...
And you've seen her on Farm Report.
Furthermore, if a black hog wants to keep his style together, he should slap his black fowl in the mouth when she needs it. Don't deny it.
She's Shahrazad Ali, the author of The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. You've read her book. Now, get her new how-to video. This easy-to-follow step-by-step guide will make you, once again, the king of your domain. Find out if you have what it takes with this simple quiz from part 1 of her video, Lines of Communication.
Hey, babe.
Hey, baby. Is it 6 o'clock already?
You know it.
Oh, boy, you know little Jake went and blew up his Ninja Turtle in the microwave today. And then Aquanetta twisted and broke her ankle trying to do that Vogue dance. So, I had to rush her to the hospital.
So I got no dinner.
Now, what would you do in this situation? A, take her out to a nice restaurant. B, have dinner at your girlfriend's. Or C, give her an open-handed slap in the mouth. The answer, of course, is C. A good slap in the mouth will train your black woman not to put her trivial concerns over your needs. Situation number 2.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Spann Report Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann. This is episode number 362 of the report. And of course, this opening here was inspired by a post that I saw on Facebook earlier this week, man. Some dude posted on Facebook that Shahrazad Ali was a precursor to somebody like a Kevin Samuels, and that she didn't get the same sort of like lambasting and the same sort of criticisms that Kevin Samuels got because Shahrazad Ali was, of course, a black woman. I don't think this person was aware that Shahrazad Ali had been like roundly criticized, even so much so that she was like, mocked and and satirized on In Living Color at the time, man. Shahrazad Ali used to do the talk show circuit back in the late 80s, early 90s and shit. And of course she really did write that book, A Black Man's Guide to the Black Woman, Understand the Black Woman and stuff. And like, if you went back and you can go back on YouTube, you can watch some of those clips, man. Crazy shit, right? She was saying crazy shit then. It was received as crazy shit then. It's received as crazy shit now to anybody who's got half a brain. But, man, I just thought it was funny that we could lead off the show with that, man. Real talk. But, what's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's good and this weekend was good to you. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, man. We got some listener feedback to get to from last week because, people had some things to say from what we had to talk about last week. They had a lot of things to say. And it wasn't just in the personal feedback that they sent to the show. It was also like going on social media, man. A lot of fans of Cook, man. We got a lot of fans of Cook. Some people like, yo, man, Cook saved the episode, man. Real talk. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But of course, before we do, I got to get in touch with I got to tell you guys how to get in touch with us here at the Spann Report Podcast and let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit us up at that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages, and of course, those messages will get read here live on the show and responded to in kind. You can also email us here at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Go ahead, leave us those emails, and of course, those emails will get read here and replied to here live as well. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, hit us up with a 5-star review on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get read here live on the show. We really appreciate everybody who goes about the business of doing that. It doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network, man. Real talk. And that's the business that we got tonight. That's the business that we got tonight. We ain't got to do no extra stuff, right? Oh, I'm sorry. The website, www.thespannreport.com. Go there, watch replays of the shows and shit. Y'all know, vote in the polls and donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And y'all know we appreciate every dime over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network, man. Real talk. But so we got we had a little doozy of a show last week, man. Real talk. It was a lot of response to that show, man. A lot of passionate response to that show, man. Like, people had some feelings about it. And ultimately, like, it was a mixed bag of folks who felt a certain way about some of the things that a couple of my guests were stating in regards to like Ardell and Keisha. A lot of folks felt like Cook brought the fire to that episode, man, because Cook came in late, man. Cook, I reached out to him like, yo, man, we doing the show live still, right? And she's like, yo, yeah, when we going on? I'm like, we on right now. And then she came through and she did her thing, man. Real talk. And I've been telling people for a long time, I think Cook is dope, and is one of the reasons why I asked her to become a part of the network. And yo, proof is in the pudding, man. Like she's dope. Let's just put it that way. She's dope. So yeah, man. We got some listener feedback, of course. Because of that episode, and I'm gonna just go ahead and get to the emails here now. Our first email here, this comes from the homie Peanut Man over on Twitter. Peanut writes in to say, "What's up, Spann? Been a minute since I wrote in episode 361. You will know them by their fruit was the fuse for me to write in. Number one, for me, when Kevin Samuels was confirmed he passed, I too didn't see a lot of celebration of his death. Some with either oh well, but mostly statements like a real one is gone. I learned so much from him, or he just wanted to improve black love, which I never got from his videos. A lot of us didn't. I mean, I didn't either. You know what I'm saying? I just kind of looked at it like like I said, the very first video that I saw Kevin Samuels was that video where it was like a split between him talking about a woman having unrealistic expectations and the type of men that she was pursuing. And there was the other part where the one that Ardell kind of brought up about, you know, him going in on some dude who said he was fat and he didn't have a big dick and he didn't make a lot of money, so he didn't have any business pursuing the type of women that he was into. But it just came across as cruel, dog. And the thing is, like, people keep acting like people keep giving this, they have this idea in their head that in order for you to tell people the truth, that you got to be an asshole about it. No, you don't always have to be an asshole about telling people the truth. You can give people the truth and deliver it a certain way, and they'll receive it better, man. It's always like that old saying, like, you'll attract people better with honey than you would with vinegar. And so, yeah, and I think oftentimes, man, when people say I'm just a truth teller, it's like, yeah, it's just you're giving yourself an excuse to be an asshole. And a lot of people confuse being an asshole with being truthful. They're not the same thing, man. Real talk. It's if the intent was to improve a person's perspective of what they need to better their income, dating life, sex life, or whatever, degrading a person ain't, in my opinion, regardless if it's a man or a woman. I agree. Real talk. Number two. I was one of those men who, when I started hearing men are trash, took offense like I'm not trash and women don't know what they are talking about. When I decided to shut up and eat my food, shout out to Steph, it was black women who clearly showed me that the phrase men are trash or men ain't shit isn't about every single black man. But yeah, and I think a lot of brothers, like, you know, if you take a second and you listen, like, some of these things that they're talking about, maybe they apply to you, maybe they don't, but it doesn't hurt for you to listen. Like, shutting up is fucking free. You can just shut the fuck up for a minute and listen. And far too often, you know, we're not listening. You know, we're not taking heed to why does this, like, why do they feel that way? Like, where does this come from? And if you actually just take a step back, man, stop like being so aggressive in your attempt to defend yourself. Just take a step back and listen. Like, all right, okay, so I can see how you came to that point. You might not even still agree. You still might not even agree with him, but at least you heard him out. And oftentimes, man, dudes ain't even really willing to listen and hear him out. It says that, but a majority of men in whole have an issue with maturity, being abusive, narcissistic, etc. Then I learned the phrase, as you and Cook started saying in the episode, if it don't apply, let it fly. And I became unbothered when I saw those statements, and then diving into why are women saying men are trash? Yeah. And that even prompted me to challenge men and seeing for myself that, yeah, men are trash. Man, listen. It's been I know for me, it's been like I've changed a lot over the course of the time that I've just been doing this podcast, right? Like the Spann that you hear now is the Spann that you heard when you first started hearing the Spann Report, right? And oftentimes, man, you'll find yourself, if you espouse some of these views, bro, like, especially around other dudes, like, a lot of times you're going to be in the minority, man. They're going to start looking at you like you crazy. I've seen it, man, especially when when I have to talk to certain people at work and shit about certain topics. It's like, bro, why did I even waste my time? Because certain, like some of this shit is just like ingrained and has been taught to dudes for so long that, like, any deviation from that, they're just really not prepared for it. It's almost like being, you know, raised up in the church and then someone exposed, like, telling you that, like, God doesn't exist, and now you're really, you know, like, you know, you've been brought up with this belief, and someone's challenging that. And so it's something similar to that, man. Like, people aren't really ready for you to like challenge the things that they believe in. And oftentimes, man, like the role of men and what the role of men is in modern society, like some dudes feel challenged by it. Some dudes feel as though things aren't going their way, and they resent the fact that like people look at them as if they are part of the problem when they consider themselves to be victims. We see this all the time, bro. We see this all the time. So yeah, man, it could be a challenge to challenge brothers on how we interact with women and our role in why things are the way that they are. So especially okay, going back to this email, it said, and even prompted me to challenge men and seeing for myself that, yeah, men are trash, especially when I try confronting them on their behavior. It's hard and tiring as I got exhausted with the limited amounts of time I reach out or confront guys and nothing is accomplished. I salute black women who continue to uplift and educate black men. Lastly, very rarely would I gloat when someone dies, but I did chuckle at some of the jokes when Samuels was confirmed dead. But when Clarence Thomas, Trump, or Zimmerman takes up in hell, can I get an invite to your party? Wakes up in hell, can I get an invite to your party? Hey, man, the bottles is going to be popping. I'm just saying, man, the bottles will be popping when they kick the can. And that's the other part that, like, and there's another story that we're going to probably talk about. We're going to talk about a little bit later. But like I said on the previous episode, this is mostly an attitude that we take on when we have some level of respect or we like people and we don't want them to like their family to something, like, you know, their family has to deal with this like this outbreak, this backlash, and they're seeing these mean things that are being said about the person that they love. Meanwhile, we're just supposed to ignore all the mean shit that this person that they love was out here espousing on the internet. We're supposed to ignore the way that the people that person made everybody else feel. We're supposed to ignore that shit because his family is mourning at the moment. Like, no, like, I think, and I believe I said it on the podcast before, it's like, yo, man, the way you live will be reflected in the way, like, when you die, man, it'll be reflected. Like, the way the people respond to the way you die, the way that people respond to your death will be a reflection of how you lived. That's it. The way you die, or the way you live, will be reflected in the response that people have when you die. It's just like, if you were a very good person, people are going to be hurt that you gone. People are going to overwhelmingly mourn you. People are going to, like, you know, take for instance, Kobe Bryant, man. Kobe Bryant. Like, you know how many brothers was like devastated when Kobe Bryant passed away? So much so that, like, when Gayle King brought up the rape allegations that happened with him in Colorado in an interview with Lisa Leslie, like brothers was incensed when that shit happened, right? Because Kobe Bryant made them feel a certain way. Kobe Bryant gave them a positive feeling about themselves, and they didn't want to hear anything negative about Kobe Bryant in that particular moment. Even despite the fact that, you know, that whole rape thing was part of Kobe Bryant's story. And I think that, like, by not even acknowledging like that happened, we don't get the redemption of a Kobe Bryant and the Kobe Bryant that we ultimately ended up losing. We don't get that if that doesn't happen. And so it's just interesting how we look at those things, man. And like I said, the way that you live, it'll be reflected in, like, when you die, how people respond to you. That shit will be reflected to you. And, like, if you out here living reckless, if you out here living like an evil life, if you out here making people feel bad about themselves, if you out here marginalizing other marginalized people, when you pass on, there's gonna be some celebrations that happen. Like, it's a cathartic feeling for a lot of folks to see someone who was antagonistic towards them being met with their demise. Like, then there's, like, you can't police that. You really just can't police that. So yeah, man. Said I could keep going, but you got a show to do, and I don't want to rant via email for 15 minutes. Hey, brother, I appreciate you writing in. Real talk, man. I appreciate Peanut from Twitter, man, for writing into the show. Now we got another email here. This comes in from the homie Reggie. Reggie writes in and says, Spann, that was a monster of an episode on Kevin Samuels. Appreciate it. I especially appreciate that the panel was balanced and that you balanced with you and Cook in opposition to Samuels, and Ardell and Keisha seemingly in support of Samuels, despite the fact that they kept saying that they weren't exactly fans of his. Yeah, I did think that was kind of interesting. Right? And here's the thing, like, I invited Keisha and I invited Ardell onto the show because I had seen some of their reactions to some of the postings about Kevin Samuels on social media, and it's part of the reason why I decided to have them on. I invited a couple other folks on too that just didn't, they didn't come through, but I invited a few people on because I wanted it to be like a panel discussion, right? And I did think it was interesting that they were not necessarily effusive in their praise for Kevin Samuels, but they did like it to some degree agree with Kevin Samuels and some of the things that he was out here saying. I know Keisha said something about, we got to hold women accountable and stuff. And I think that's like, it's kind of a talking point that I've heard a lot of like fans of Kevin Samuels say. And it's like a generic sort of term. If you ask me, I feel like that's a very generic term to say like, well, we got to hold women accountable. Well, hold them accountable for what exactly? You know what I'm saying? Like, because some of these things aren't just about holding women accountable. This is just talking shit about women. And, I know, like, for those of you who didn't actually see the podcast, you listened to it, like, a lot of my responses were, like, kind of facial reactionary responses because, like, when Ardell, asked Cook, like, who hurt you? And I was like, oh, man, you fucking... Like, in my face, I was like, man, you just fucked up right there because that was the wrong thing to say to someone like Cook. And I, like, me and Cook had talked about her coming on for that particular episode because she had a lot to say about Kevin Samuels. And so it just kind of worked out that, me and Cook were not necessarily, mourning the death of Kevin Samuels, and not that like Keisha and Ardell were mourning it, but I did think it was interesting that they were like, yo, nobody should be celebrating the death of anybody. And it's like, man, I don't know about that, man. People die, and like real terrible people die all the time, and their deaths are celebrated when they pass on. That's just like, nobody was like mad. Like the world kind of rejoiced when Hitler took his own life. You know what I'm saying? Nobody was upset that he was going outside of his followers. In much the same way, not to say that Kevin Samuels was Adolf Hitler, but in much the same way that like a lot of Kevin Samuels followers were like very upset at the response that his death garnered, because they couldn't fathom that the world didn't look at Kevin Samuels in the way that they did, right? So yeah, man, that's what was going on. They said Kevin Samuels actually wasn't an original though. He was just the latest and probably most popular iteration of the male relationship advisor or pickup artist. People like Tariq Nasheed and Eric Von Markovich come to mind. Yeah, like that was the other thing too. Like I remember back in the day, like Tariq Nasheed, back when he was doing that Mac Lessons radio show shit, and guys would call into the show and they would like, ask him for advice about like getting with women and stuff like that. And I remember back in the day, I used to listen to Tariq's show, man. I used to listen. I used to laugh at that shit because I thought his show was fucking funny. And like after a while, my sensibility started to change. Some of the things I started noticing, some of the shit he was saying wasn't really like, it wasn't reading the smell test, bro. Like some of it was some bullshit. And then, getting to like the like the foundational Black America shit, he got that hustle he got going on, and the Hidden Colors movies and some of the like the falsehoods that were in those films, and like watching people like kind of clamor to that shit. Like, man, this is all a fucking grift. So yeah, man, I agree that he's not the original. I don't think anybody like mistook him for or an original, but yeah, it's like he's just one of many in a long line. And now I think that like some of the folks, as far as social media and this new media, as far as the YouTube and the Facebook Live and all these streaming platforms that we have now, have allowed for so many more of these guys to just kind of pop up and gain a following. Like, and that was the other part about, like the integrity part about it to me was like, yo, it's so many people who were just jumping in it. It's not just a podcast and YouTube, but it's a money grab for a lot of folks. And they will get on these mics and they will talk about shit, not necessarily believe in the shit that they're talking about, but people who are listening to them actually do believe the shit that they're talking about. And so like the lack of integrity there is what like jumps out to me. And like with Kevin Samuels, when we know that Kevin Samuels didn't start his channel off that way, but he found out and even announced on his show that like if he started talking a certain type of way towards a certain type of people, that he would garner, a bigger audience. And like he talked that shit into existence. Like, yo, like, did he even really believe the shit that he was saying? Because a lot of dudes out here are walking around believing the shit that Kevin Samuels was out here saying. Oh, man, you make good points. You know what I'm saying? You make good points. Motherfuckers out here getting tattoos of Kevin Samuels, B. These motherfuckers is not all right. They are not okay, man. Motherfuckers is walking around with like necklaces and shit with Kevin Samuels' face on it, bro. These niggas are not okay. They are not all right, man, for real. So yeah, man. Let's see. He goes on to say, it's just a sad reality that the more incendiary his rhetoric, the more popular and influential he became. Would I personally celebrate his demise? No, just not how I'm built. But I totally understand the cathartic feeling. Okay, that cathartic word, all right. Cathartic feeling many women may be having with him passing on, and I have no judgment on them. Anyways, thanks again for a tremendous show. Peace, Reggie. I appreciate you, Reggie, man. Thank you for writing in. I hope to hear from you again soon, brother. Real talk. Now, this next email here, we got clearly, this came from a... This email came from a Kevin Samuels supporter. It's gotta be, man, because this nigga is so upset with your boy, man. He is so motherfucking upset. Like, I'm gonna read this, but really it's almost like,
what the fuck, y'all? God damn! God damn! God damn!
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Fuck!
That nigga must have been listening to that episode like that the whole time, man. The whole time. But we get this email here. This comes from Shaka714. Shaka714 writes in to say, I've been listening to and watching this joke of a podcast for years now, and this episode just crystallized just how much of a cuck-ass, beta male, simp-ass nigga you've become. Well, I'll just say, God damn! Tell me how you really feel, nigga. Tell me how you really feel. Also, man, check this out. I talked about this on that show too, so you must have felt convicted, bro. I said that hate watching is still watching. Why on earth are you watching me if you can't stand the shit that I'm talking about here, brother? Like, what do you get out of that? Like, I like, in much the same way that, like, I wouldn't necessarily advise anybody to continue watching Kevin Samuels videos if they don't like Kevin Samuels. I wouldn't, like, do that to myself. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this to you, bro? Help me help you. You don't have to watch me, man. You know? Now, as far as me being a beta male, all this other shit, man, I mean, here's the thing, bro. When it comes to, I respect the opinions of people who I respect. I don't know you. So, like, I mean, all this shit that you have to say about me, I mean, honestly, bro, I don't give a fuck, man. Like, I really don't care. You've been listening for years, bro. Like, come on, man. Come on, man. You doing this to yourself, B. Stop it. Stop it. This is embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing for you. Oh, my God. It says the nerve of you to try to make light out of the death of someone like Kevin Samuels is despicable, and I'm sure your father is ashamed of you. It's probably why y'all had so much beef. He knew his son was a sucker and wanted to wash his hands of you. Ooh. Hey, man, that might all be true. That might all be true. But I don't care. I don't care, bro. I don't care. But apparently you do. You was typing mad at the motherfucker on your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever. You had to make sure I knew this, man. You was mad. You was upset. Oh, man, I feel sorry for you. Said, shout out to that sister Keisha who was spitting the real, because God forbid women be held accountable for the decisions they make. And at least one of those women on your show at least understood that. Oh, man, really? Really? We talking about accountability here, bro. That was what she was talking about. Cause, like, honestly, like, Keisha, although, like I said, I don't think Keisha is necessarily a fan of Kevin Samuels. Her biggest thing was the fact that people was, like, celebrating, quote unquote, the death of Kevin Samuels. And, like, as I said on the show, my contention was that I don't think people were necessarily celebrating overwhelmingly the death of Kevin Samuels. I'm sure there were probably some people who were, like, getting a groove on, right? But at the same time, you know, lack of mourning doesn't necessarily equal celebration, man. Some people just indifferent. Some people just didn't give a damn. And some people let their feelings be known on social media in much the same way that Kevin Samuels let his feelings be known on social media. So be mad, nigga. Be mad all you want. I don't give a fuck, nigga. All this shit you talking to me right now, I don't give a single solitary flying fuck what you talking about, man. It's just funny to me that you this mad and you decide to write in and admit that you've been listening to and watching this show for years and you can't stand it. And it makes absolutely no fucking sense to me why you would do that shit to yourself. It really doesn't. But you're a Kevin Samuels fan, so it's making all the sense in the world why you would, though. Right? It makes sense, but it don't. If that makes sense. You feel me? Oh, man. I said, this is just, this was just sad for you to mention Mr. Gates talking about integrity when you were the one who switched up because you thought it would bring more listeners. Now look at you with this middling ass podcast, grasping at topics, hoping one of them catches on. That's your issue with Samuels. You wish you could enjoy the level of success that man had, but you are begging your listeners for reviews. You're pathetic. Well, all right. So you've been listening as far back as Gates, huh? So I don't know if you're a Gates fan or not. I don't know. But here's the deal, right? The reason why I mentioned, and I don't know if you really follow context much at all, but the reason why I even mentioned the rift between me and him and why we no longer talk and why we no longer do shows is because I couldn't really decipher whether or not he was saying things on the mic that were the things that he genuinely believed, or whether or not he was saying things on the mic with me that he said were like, I felt like he was just doing the shit because it was, it would drive revenue. It would drive listeners. It would drive eyeballs. The controversy drives eyeballs. All that to say that Kevin Samuels did the same shit to yo dumbass. He was out here saying shit he did not fucking believe, and you ate that shit up. Hook, line, and sinker. He had your ass hooked. And y'all out here acting like asses because some dude that you didn't know is telling you to act like an ass towards the other, the half of the population. And then when the other half of the population is rejoicing or like just even being indifferent to his death, you motherfuckers are up in arms. You motherfuckers are out here getting tattoos. You motherfuckers are coming up with other podcasts mimicking his shit. Like, come on, man. That dude didn't believe what the fuck he was talking about. Now, like I said, I don't know if Gates really believed the shit that he was saying on these mics. I don't know. But I brought that up because for me, integrity matters. And that helped like accelerate the split between me and that dude who was a mentor to me, right? Let's keep that for real. Like, he was a mentor to me at one point. But when I can't decipher whether or not you really believe the shit that you saying when you on these mics, then maybe it's time for us to part ways. That's why I brought that up, because I felt like Kevin Samuels was saying shit that he didn't really believe, but he got a lot of you motherfuckers that believe in him. So that's why that shit came up. So I say that to say this. I hope you get a hug tonight, man. I hope somebody like really like seek help, bro. For real. Like, you've been listening to me and watching me for years. You don't even like me. I don't understand why. It makes no sense to me, really. But again, seek help. Get a hug, man. Somebody hug this nigga for real, man. Somebody reach out and touch this nigga for real. In a good way. I ain't telling him reach out and touch the nigga, whoop his ass, nothing like that. Somebody send some love this nigga's way, because he clearly needs it. Clearly needs it. But yo, man, that's been a listener feedback. It's time for us to get into the news, y'all. Oh shit, where my news sound at? The news ain't playing? Okay, let's do it again. There we go. Man. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We got a few comments here in the chat room. William Chambers in the chat room, he says, sometimes the family can get it too. They vomited that person in the world, man. Yeah, you know what? I don't like, yeah, they I hear you, man. I ain't about going up against his family though, unless his family come out saying like talking crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, family come out talking crazy, then go right on the head. But like, if they out here and they trying to mourn, if they're trying to mourn like privately and things like that, man, I don't think anybody should be coming after his family or nothing like that. I'm just saying, like, when we start talking all that shit about what his family got to see, what people are saying about him, was like, yo, his family wasn't seeing the shit that people were saying about him when he was out here talking that shit. Like, come on, man, let's be for real. Jackson in the chat room, he says, for years. Yeah. Yeah. Buddy been listening and watching for years, bro. He had to let me know. How I'm a beta ass. Hold on, let me go back. Hold on, man. Because this nigga was mad, yo. He says, wait, hold on. He says, cuck ass, beta male ass, simp ass nigga. You watch the Housewives? Yeah, I missed that line, but he said, you watch the Housewives, nigga, really? Just come out of the closet already, you silly ass fuckboy. Like, come on, bro. He was upset. Like, yes, nigga, I watch the Housewives sometimes. It's good TV, man. Good trash TV. Some of us watch good trash TV. I would not be shamed for my television watching choices, man. Fuck you. right? Somewhere we, he said a spicy hate watching, mad as fuck, man. He was upset, man. Somebody, like I said, man, somebody get that man a hug, man. Lex is in the chat room. He said, dude coming at you like you insulted his non-present father. I mean, maybe that could be it. That could be it, man. Real talk. But yo, shout out to the chat room, man. They in there kicking it. And yo, let's get into the news, man. So let me take down the living color here, though. We got some serious things to talk about here. Our first story here in the news has to deal with there was a mass shooting, man, in Buffalo, New York, bro. Racially motivated mass shooting at that. So we get this story here. This comes out of CNN.com. It says witnesses describe horrors of mass shooting at a Buffalo supermarket that killed 10 people and authorities say was racially motivated. Shoppers in and around a Buffalo, New York supermarket Saturday detailed being forced to hide behind cars, calling out for help as a gunman killed 10 people and wounded 3 others. And the mass shooting authorities believe was racially motivated. Grady Lewis said he was outside the supermarket when he heard 7 or 8 gunshots and described seeing a white man fully prepared, ready to go, dressed in tactical gear, spraying gunfire at the entry of the store, which is located in the heart of the city's black community. Law enforcement arrived within 2 minutes after the shooting began, Lewis told CNN affiliate WKBW. He heard at least 20 or so shots before the suspect exited the store. He came out, he put the gun to his head, to his chin, then he dropped it and took off his bulletproof vest, then got on his hands and knees and put his hands behind his back, Lewis said, describing the moments the suspect was arrested by police. I thought they were going to shoot him, but they didn't shoot him. They should have shot him. I still don't even believe it happened, that a person would go into a supermarket full of people, he said. It was horrible. It was really horrible. One woman told WKBW that she received a distressing phone call from her scared, historical 19-year-old granddaughter who was at the supermarket and heard gunshots. The woman raced to the scene and found her granddaughter outside the store. I can't explain it, how grateful I am to God that she's okay, because she could have been one of the other people. 2 people remain hospitalized in stable condition. A spokesperson for Erie County Medical Center told CNN Saturday night, and a 3rd person wounded was discharged. Of the 13 victims, 11 were black and 2 were white, Buffalo Police Commissioner Joseph Gramalia said. Now, yeah, first things first, man. The idea that one would go into a supermarket and like target people for just on some random racist shit, man, it's scary, especially considering the amount of guns that people have in America. Now, y'all know your man Spann isn't necessarily like I'm not like one of those people who shy away from gun ownership. I embrace the right, simply because white people are embracing the right. And, I would like to be able to protect myself and protect the ones around me against something like that. Even if I'd have had my pistol on me in the grocery store, there's no like they hit. I saw earlier they said there was a former Buffalo City police officer, a retired Buffalo City police officer who was working security there, and he shot this dude, but he had on body armor, so the shot didn't have any effect on the guy, and ultimately the former Buffalo police officer was killed in the assault. But I think that, as we look into how people talk on social media, how easy it is for folks to be radicalized on social media, how much like the radicalization is happening on mainstream platforms, man, you're starting to see mainstream platforms echo a lot of these right-wing talking points that used to just be relegated to the chat rooms and on like, just like maybe Reddit, or like back in the day, man, like Yahoo have chat rooms and like racists and stuff like that. And they would just congregate there, and that would be the only place that you saw that shit. Now, man, you could turn on Fox News and like hear some of the same shit that you would hear on Stormfront. Like you go on the Stormfront website, and now Tucker Carlson is actually echoing some of the same shit. And there's this theory that they are that a lot of white supremacists are really promoting right now, and I know that this is something that is being echoed on the right, is like this with the browning of America, with the changing demographics of America, that there's a lot of white people who are petrified, scared to death of being a minority in this country. And the reasons why I believe that they're so petrified at the idea of being relegated to being minorities in this country is because they know how they treated minorities when they were in the majority, bro. Like, they think that the reckoning is coming. They think that, in the ways in which they've treated people, or, in mass, the ways in which they've treated people, they think that retribution is coming. They think that, whenever black and brown people get control of this country, that they're going to be marginalized, they're going to be relegated to second class citizenship in the ways in which they've done to us. And I don't know if they know black and brown people that well, because to be quite frank, man, with some of the more forgiving, considering some of the things that black America and brown America has endured here in this country, I think black Americans and brown Americans are some forgiving motherfuckers, considering we don't see more attacks on white people in the ways in which white people think that we're going to attack them, right? Because we've been going through some shit for the better part of the entirety of the history of this nation, right? And so there's this thing though that they are petrified at not having a dominant force, or being a dominant force in this country, man. And this goes into the people that they elect to elected office, to federal office. We've been talking about, the things with, say for instance, with Roe versus Wade and things. You start thinking about Roe versus Wade, and some of the rollbacks that they're trying to pull on that. Calling every history class that speaks the true history of this nation, calling that shit critical race theory, and banning books and shit like that. And then on top of that, a lot of the edicts that they have not necessarily being popular with the vast majority of Americans. If you look at what the Republican Party it has been promoting, a lot of their policies aren't necessarily popular with the vast majority of Americans, and polling data after polling data after polling data reflects it. But they've managed to, over the course of the last, I want to say the last 40 years, they've managed to eke themselves out in existence where they understand that they're a minority, but they're setting themselves up for a minority rule. And we talked about this when we saw we were talking about the possible overturning of Roe versus Wade, where the Supreme Court justices there, the vast majority of those people were put in place by presidents who didn't win the popular vote. The vast majority of people didn't even want the guys who appointed them, right? So now they're in a position to make laws and to make precedent, and it be the subject, and everyone else being subject to those laws, despite the fact that the people who are in place shouldn't be there because the people who put them there shouldn't have been there in the first place, right? So yeah, man, I know more and more, this story happened yesterday, and I was out and about with my wife and stuff, so I wasn't even aware of this until this morning. But the fact that this dude had a manifesto and was I think they said he live streamed the shit on Twitch. We live on Twitch right now too. But he live streamed the shit on Twitch. He had a 180 fucking page manifesto that he wrote all type of racial slurs and shit on his AR-15 or whatever else, man. And he's a young dude, right? He's a young guy. We're going to, unfortunately, I hate to predict shit like this, but we're going to see more actions like this, especially as, the political climate keeps getting ratcheted up, because as you notice, the Republican Party, man, I know I'm a rag on the Republicans, but the Republican Party doesn't necessarily have a platform. The only platform that they have is grievance. They have a grievance platform, and it's grievances that white people are getting the short end of the stick. We're being victims in this country that we created. We're getting the short end of the stick, and we're not going to take this shit no more. And that is firing up so much of this shit that we're seeing now, man. It's firing so much of that. So, yeah, man. That's in the news. We got a comment here in the chat room. It says they used to use a robot to carry a bomb to blow up a black suspect who shot at some cops. Yeah, that was the other thing that I think is very interesting too, was the fact that he was actually able to walk away from this with his life intact, right? We've seen so many instances of, there was a prime example. There was a shooting of a motorist in, I want to say, Grand Rapids, Michigan, a few weeks ago, and I forget this brother's name, but he kind of he was acting, during the stop, he did look a little sketch, you know what I'm saying? He was moving a little funny. He ran away from the cop. The cop eventually gets into a tussle with this dude. The cop has this guy on the ground, and he already has the guy, his face to the ground, face to the ground. He pulls out his gun, shoots this guy in the back of the head, right? Shoots this guy in the back of the head. This was a traffic stop that resulted in this dude losing his life. Now, a lot of white America, unfortunately, will say, well, had he not ran away, had he not tussled with the cop, he would be here. He would be alive today. And there are other people who are like, yo, man, yeah, the tussling with the cop shouldn't result in him being like executed. Right? And here we have someone who goes into a grocery store with the intent of killing as many people as he possibly could. This motherfucker planned it. He got on armor. He got a couple, like rifles and shit. And somehow he's able to walk away with his life intact. None of those officers felt like their life was in danger as this dude was like, but he gunned down like 13 other people though. Like, and that's the disconnect that a lot of folks are having when it comes to these, like the disproportionate response that people like the police have to instances like this. Like, why is it so easy for you to kill this brother during a tussle at a traffic stop, but like somehow this dude that like killed 13 people or but killed 10 people, wounded 13, is able to walk away? Like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So Greg Simpson says, I think they're scared that soon they won't be able to have the option to shit on people without facing consequence anymore. That's it. Yeah, yeah, there's that. But like even now, how many consequences are really being meted out to them? Like, think about it. Like Kyle Rittenhouse went to Kenosha and shot 3 people and claimed self-defense despite the fact that he took his ass there with a rifle. Like dude, you went there looking for some trouble. You went there looking for trouble and trouble found you, and then you're claiming self-defense after you found trouble. Like, and now he's a hero on the right after killing 3 people. You know, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. But that's in the news, man. That's in the news. Now, another story that we have here in the news is actually a much better story, man, for real. In Michigan, the state is going to offer $10,000 for a down payment for first-time home buyers, man. Yeah, we get this story here. This comes out of fox2detroit.com. I believe there's video to this story, so let me see if I can pull this video up and you guys can watch right along with me here. Yeah, let me go ahead and pull this up here for a second. Hold on just a second, fellas, while I do this here. All right, let's do that and that and that. All right, here we go. Let's see what he's talking about.
In the not too distant past, you could drive through almost any neighborhood and at least see one for sale sign out front. Those days are long gone. Realtor.com's most recent housing market report says inventory is down 60% compared to the start of the pandemic, meaning for every 5 homes available 2 years ago, that number's down to 2. Here's local realtor John Gochi.
I'm a father of two kids that are both in the home buying market, as they're graduating college, but there's just not any homes. And now that you have a shortage of homes, you have a higher interest rate, buyers are really, caught in a really tough place.
With dozens of bidders and interest rates climbing to its highest in 2 decades, finding your dream home can be a mission impossible.
Perseverance and preparation for individuals going in is one of the key things that people kind of need to keep in mind.
Eric Dusenberry works with the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, or MSHDA. The agency helps home buyers find affordable mortgage options.
Because we are into this spring home buying season, do you expect to get busier over the next few months if you're not already?
Yeah, it's a little bit like the calm before the storm. When the weather breaks here, things really kind of break out.
MSHDA's My 10K Down Payment Assistance Program gives first-time homebuyers an added financial boost up to $7,500 statewide and as much as $10,000 depending on the zip code. You must be a first-time homebuyer, meet your county's household income limit. The home sale price can't be greater than $224,500, and a minimum credit score of 640 is required. Eric Dusenberry says MSHDA is trying to increase the home purchase limit by the summer, and here's one reason why.
Okay, there's a couple things here that I think is like kind of interesting. First off, shout out to them for like even attempting to help people like buy a house, you know what I'm saying, and putting forth those types of funds, like $10,000 towards a down payment on a home, man, that can make or break somebody's effort, man, for real. I think that like the home price though, like the limit as to how much that home can cost, I think that could be an issue for folks, right? Because one of the reasons why people are having such a hard time, even getting a home is because of the amount that the homes are costing, because of the fact that like supply is low and so demand is high, and it drives up the price of these homes. So like the fact that these houses can't be more than $224,000, that can hurt. Like the fact that the people who will be eligible for these types of funds won't necessarily be able to take advantage of it because of like there's a limit as to how much the house costs. Like I don't get that. Like I want to say like, well, maybe they kind of just want to keep it to like a certain like income level. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, we don't want any like, rich kids or something like that, taking advantage of this state program. We really want to kind of lead this towards like, lower income people. But I just think that like, yo, the reasons why the lower income people are having trouble is because of the price of the homes are going up. I don't know if the kid who is from a well-to-do family is going to have an issue coming up with the monies for the down payment on a home that's $224,000. They probably won't even need that help. I think this is like, that's one of the things that could like, kind of curtail the amount of people who could be able to take advantage of this particular program. But yeah, man, I think it's dope that like $10,000, towards the purchase of a home, man, for a lot of folks, that could be a godsend, man, for real. And I know, like, I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I know when I was going through the process of buying my home, to me, like, the process was kind of smooth, man. And it like, and I know like, and I talked about this because like so many people before me, before like I bought my house, like I would always hear people talk about how hard it was to buy a home. And I was like, yo, man, it really wasn't that bad for me. And so afterwards, now that I'm in my shit, it's like I'm starting to see all these stories, these nightmares about like the interest rates are going up. I'm only pre-approved for, X amount of dollars, and the average price in my area for a house is like this amount. And this, I can't buy much house with it, what I'm approved for. Like, so it's a lot of things going on, man. But I applaud anybody or any state agency is going to help in this way, to help people get into their homes, man, because yo, man, it's a lot, man. It's a lot of people who want to get out of like renting because, speaking of which, me and my wife were having a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about like if we had like just stay renting and like getting into like apartments and stuff. And one of the things I always I talked about was like, yo, man, like if we'd have stayed that way, we'd have just we'd have been moving constantly because no matter what. When it comes to when you're renting, a lot of times, man, the rent goes up regardless as to whether or not the place is getting better or not, whether they put any improvements in the space or not. They're just like, yo, man, the market value says this apartment is worth this, so now you paying this. It's like, well, shit, man, like you ain't even fixed my motherfucking AC in my bedroom, chief, and now you want me to give you another $200 a month? Like, and I didn't want to have to deal with that, constantly moving and things like that. But yo, and we got a comment here in the chat room. Lex says it doesn't help that many of the once affordable homes were bought up by investors, indeed, and individuals renovated and either sold at an upcharge or posted for rent. Yeah, that's the other part that is becoming more and more apparent, man. That like because people are buying these homes or these investment firms are buying these homes sight unseen, man, and then they go in there and they renovate these homes and they don't even put them up. They'll put them up for sale, mark them bitches back up. It's like they buy them and flip them. They just flipping the houses. But then other times, man, they're just buying them and then it's like, okay, so this is a rental property now. There was a story that was on 60 Minutes I want to say about a month ago, where they talked about like, yeah, we're going to basically rent the American dream to you because they believe that younger Americans want to rent. Like, no, I think most Americans, they would prefer to own their own shit. They would prefer to be able to have some level of autonomy about the things that they're spending their money on, but they don't have it now because so many of these investment firms are just buying up the supply, driving up the cost. And that's really hurting folks' ability to buy homes as well, man. But shout out to Lex, man, because that was a very good point you just made there, real talk, brother. But yeah, man. So that's in the news, man. In Michigan, man, you might be able to afford. You might be able to take advantage of getting $10,000 if you're a first-time home buyer by the state. So take advantage of that if you can. Real talk. Another story that we have here in the news. So Joe Manchin, man. Joe Manchin. This fuckboy, Joe Manchin, sided with Republicans and voted no on a Roe versus Wade bill, saying that it goes too far. And just
What the fuck, y'all? God damn! God damn! God damn! What? Fuck!
yeah, that's how I think like most of us feel. And so we get the story here. This actually comes out of Fox News, so take this with a grain of salt, y'all. But no, it says Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, will be opposing a Democratic abortion bill when it is up for a procedural vote Wednesday afternoon, stating that it's too broad for his liking. Manchin said that while he would vote for a bill that would legalize abortion on the federal level, the bill before the Senate now is not what I was hoping for and what I expected because it goes too far. I was hopeful that the Democratic Party, having control of the agenda, would put a piece of legislation forward that would codify Roe versus Wade. It said, Manchin said, stating that 70% of American people want this. So if you know 70% of Americans want this, Joe Manchin, if you know this going in, how do you reconcile that with your vote? Like, seriously, you can say that it's too broad or whatever, man. But when the rubber fucking meets the road, how do you justify your vote knowing that 70% of Americans are in favor of this? Says to me, that would be reasonable. That would be the reasonable, rational thing to do. We have a bill the bill we have today to vote on. Women's Health Protection Act, make no mistake, is not Roe versus Wade codification. It is an expansion. It wipes 500 state laws off the books. It expands abortion. That's okay. And that's where the article ends. So he contends that that the legislation that the Democrats were putting forth was an expansion on abortion. But you say this in a climate where Republicans have been attacking abortion accessibility and abortion rights across the fucking country. So, like, in some states now, they may only have one abortion clinic in the entire state. You have other states who are seeking to keep women from going to neighboring states so that they can get the procedure done. You have other states that, like, you know, like they can't, like a woman, say for instance, I think that there was a story that came out of I want to say it was Mississippi. They're like, if a woman gets pregnant in Mississippi, she can't go to Alabama, she can't go to Tennessee, she can't go to Arkansas, she can't go to, you know, all these surrounding states because the abortion is severely limited in those states as well. And so when you have all of these laws that are restricting the abortion rights, and you're worried about the expansion of abortion when like they've been restricting abortion and the accessibility to it for the better part of the last 10 or 15 years, like, make that shit make sense, man. Make that shit make sense. And so, honestly, what I hope this does, though, when we get to, like, you know, the midterm elections are this year, what I really do hope for is that people go to the polls and let their voices be heard, man. Send a message to these people who are keeping you from getting the access that you should have, right? Because they are continuously assaulting rights left and right. And it's like, it's almost like that you know, that old adage about, you know, you could, you know, if you put a frog into some hot water, it's going to hot right the fuck out. But if you slowly turn the water up, he will slowly boil to death, right? Because he never really pays attention to how hot the water is getting. That's essentially kind of what's happening here. Slowly but surely, your rights are being eroded away. And like, if people really don't take advantage and take heed to putting in politicians who are about putting in laws, who are about presenting legislation and passing legislation to not only protect the laws that you have, but to grant you the rights that you should have already, we gonna be in a pickle, man. We gonna be in a pickle. I've said this on the show before. I'll say it again. 2016, there's a lot of people who did not vote in 2016. There's a lot of people who keep talking about the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. I don't know what else to tell you, but they're showing you they're not. They are fucking showing you that they are not. So, yeah, man, this is crazy. So Alexis in the chat room, he says, Texas incentivizes snitching to keep people from going to a state that enforces a modicum of bodily autonomy. Yeah, man, like, that was the whole thing that kicked a lot of this shit off, was Texas, like, coming up with that little, that novel-ass legal tactic in order to get around Roe versus Wade. And then there's other states. I want to say Missouri is another state that tried to, come up with something similar and also keep you from going to another state to have an abortion performed and everything else. And they were doing this all over the course of the last winter, last fall. These laws were all being ramped up, especially once they knew that they had those three the Supreme Court justices that were appointed by Donald Trump. When they got those three justices, all of these laws started coming down the pipe. And the reasons why was because they knew that they were going to go to a Supreme Court, and they thought that the Supreme Court was going to be favorable to these laws because now they had the judges. And because now we have the judges, we could put this stuff up and it'll go up to the Supreme Court. We're going to eradicate Roe versus Wade. This shit was on the ballot in 2016, and not enough people paid attention or took heed to how desperate we really were to not having something like this happen. People sat on their ass, man. People rested on their laurels. A lot of folks really do believe that these laws, but these rights were, once we got them, they can't take them. Well, apparently not, motherfucker. Like even in the draft opinion that was leaked, they was talking about these rights, like Roe versus Wade wasn't, these rights weren't, enshrined in the Constitution, and that they're not a part of the American culture. And like, how many other things they used to do that were not in the rights that we had that weren't necessarily enumerated in the Constitution, right? So, yeah, man. Like, I know people have been hearing, what this could mean for gay marriage, because that was a Supreme Court ruling that is now precedent, but could possibly not be precedent anymore. There could be something that overturns that. We're seeing challenges. We may see challenges to interracial marriage. We may see challenges to our access to education, because all of these states, if you're paying attention, man, if you're paying any motherfucking attention, they're trying to they're taking books out of the fucking schools. They're trying to reinstate like religion into your schools. They're trying to regulate your bodies via, telling a woman she can't have access to an abortion. There's a number of different things that they're doing. And I'll say this, man, to anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, especially black people, I really cannot understand any black person at this point who still votes for the Republican Party. There was a time where I could probably get it, right? I could almost understand some black people and why they would. Maybe they were like business owners and they were like, yo, man, just on some business shit. This makes the right, I'm a business person. I just voted for him for economic reasons. But like, even like to the point where it's detrimental to the people who would probably patronize your business. It's detrimental to the people in your family who aren't a part of your business. Like, at a certain point, I can't understand a black person who would vote for the Republican Party at this point, because they're showing you every fucking day why you shouldn't fuck with them. They have an animus towards people who look like you and people who come from where you come from, and they make it plain in the legislation and the laws that they present. They make it plain. So yeah, man, it's getting crazy out here. Ginsburg, Lex also says in the chat, he says Ginsburg was a legend, but she should have retired during Obama's second term. The blame isn't on her, but it would have prevented Trump from being able to put 3 judges on the bench. Here's the part about that, though, and I agree with you to a certain extent. We already saw that McConnell was willing to block Merrick Garland from being on that Supreme Court. Now, had Ruth Bader Ginsburg retired around that time, maybe it would have added pressure. Maybe it would have added pressure to like McConnell to stop being an obstructionist in that way, right? With there being 2 vacancies on the court, and with there being 2 vacancies on the court, like we can't have a judge, the court sitting with like 2 vacant seats. Although I could see McConnell probably, pulling the same shit too, because the makeup of the court would probably have been the same. But all that being said, I just think that like if we'd have really paid attention, if enough of us actually just like stop with the apathy shit and stop falling for like some of the bullshit that we saw on social media, where we stopped equating Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump as being the two sides of the same coin, man. Anytime I listen to anybody say that shit, you just letting me know that you don't know what the fuck you talking about. Yeah, man, it's just, yeah, it's a lot of craziness, man, going on in this world, bro. And like, we have an opportunity coming up in November to like kind of do something about it, like to do something about it. We really could, but we need more people to like really take heed and pay attention. And that's the thing, man. That's the thing. Not enough people, I believe, are like really paying attention to the things that are happening around them. Yeah, but that's in the news. Now, another story that we have here in the news. This is our final news story here. But so in Georgia, they have voted, the GHSA votes to require student athletes to play on teams according to the sex on their birth certificate. There's video attached to this, so let me go ahead and pull this video up so you guys can watch right along with me. Hold on a second. Let me take this down. Let's stop that one, and then let's add this one. All right, let's do that there. Yeah, let's see what they're talking about. What's going on in Georgia? Check this out, y'all.
Tonight, Governor Kemp has signed a slew of education bills into law, with a number of them stirring up plenty of controversy. 11 Alive's Brittany Kleinpeter digging deeper into what the bills will mean for you and your family.
Surrounded by dozens of educators and students, Governor Brian Kemp signed 7 bills into law here at the Forsyth County Learning Center. Among the more controversial, a parental bill of rights and a bill that would ban so-called divisive concepts from being taught in the classroom, including restricting divisive concepts.
In layman's terms, critical race theory, parental rights. Like, they're coding all this shit. Like, if you paying attention, man, they give it this innocuous ass language, bro, but we know what the fuck it is, man.
How teachers can discuss race. Sponsors of the bill say it will increase transparency in Georgia schools and allow students to learn in an environment free of personal ideologies.
I believe in this day and age, we don't need to proselytize one's politics in the classroom, especially by trying to pit children against each other.
That's the other thing too, right? This is like an example of what it means, and like the privilege that there is in being white in America, in that you can look at someone's lived experience as a person of color in this nation and think that, like, yo, this is purely a political thing, right? This is politics. We're playing politics. Like, no, nigga, we talk about my life here, bro. We're talking about our history here. And it's unfortunate for you that the history isn't on your side. And so because the history isn't on your side, now it's a political thing, and we need to like make sure that these people can't talk about that history, because I agree with some of the shit that happened in that history, and it doesn't look good for me. So we can't have the kids learn that. And that's here's the other part about that critical race theory shit, and the reasons why I can't understand black people who vote for Republicans right now, is that this is an instance of the Republican Party attempting to dumb down the populace. And the reason why I say that is like, yo, if you can dumb down the populace, if you can get them to not necessarily know historically how these things are similar to the things that they've done in the past, then you can pull whatever fucking wool over the eyes of your voters that you can, like, whenever you want. You can lead anybody wherever you want when they don't know what the fuck is going on. And so when you see Republicans going out of their way to talk about, well, we need to re-examine how we teach about history in the schools, and we need to pull certain books off the shelves because these kids shouldn't be learning these kids shouldn't be learning these ideologies. They shouldn't be learning these experiences. They shouldn't be reading about these certain things. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of them learning? Right? Because if they're aware of these things happening in the past, they can recognize the shit happening right now. There's a reason why they don't want your kids to know certain things. There's a reason why they're opting to and they're pushing it off and making it as though like, yeah, we're standing up for your rights. Well, damn it, what about my right for my kid? What if I wanted my kid to read that book? You're not standing up for my right then. What if I wanted my kid to learn that math concept that way? You're not standing up for my parental rights then. Let's talk about whose parental rights you're talking about right now. White people. They're not talking about us. And so when I hear when I hear this sort of rhetoric coming out of the mouth of a politician, I'm just like, man, come on, man. We know what the fuck this is. You're not fooling me. I mean, you fooling some people. They're obviously fooling some people, but come on, bro.
Through the lens of race.
Just moments after the bill signing, the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ACLU spoke out against the law, calling it censorship in the classroom. Some parents saying supporters shouldn't send their kids to public schools.
Public schools were created to educate the citizenry and to produce informed and civically engaged adults, not to cater to the individual parents' wants and preferences.
House Bill 1084 would also allow athletic associations to ban transgender students from joining female teams.
And as parents of 3 daughters,
okay, here's another part, right? Because now to get into the meat of why we even brought this story up. Why is it that we are only concerned about girls' sports when talking about whether or not trans people or trans athletes can compete in these games, right? We only are concerned about girls. We're never concerned about, what the boys are going to have to face when they play against someone who's of transgender, who is transgender. We're never worried about that. We're worried about the girls, We're worried about opportunities being taken away from the young ladies who are competing in these sports, and it's unfair to them, It's bullshit, and we're going to break it down a little bit more here in a second, but I'm going to let this video finish out.
I want every young girl in this state to have every opportunities to succeed in the sport that they love. That should not be controversial.
The governor also signed bills to ban certain books considered obscene from school libraries, double cap the Student Scholarship Organization donations, ensure school board meetings are transparent, guarantee financial literacy is taught in schools, and allow retired teachers to return to the classroom full-time in high-need areas. All of these bills are expected to go into effect this summer.
All right. So I said I was going to kind of break this down a little bit. Here's the thing. So this idea that we need to protect young girls from trans athletes, right? And we need to protect these young girls from trans athletes because they're taking away opportunities that these young girls would have and to be able to succeed in the sports that they love. I mean, even Kemp said this shit during his little fuck ass speech, right? And one of the things that I asked people, because one of the things that actually brought this shit to my attention was the fact that I saw some of my people that are in Georgia, they were sharing this story on Facebook, and they were happy about it. They were giddy about the fact that yo, man, we banning these trans girls from being able to compete against high school girls in girls sports. And one of the things that I asked, every time I see people who are happy about this, especially when I see black people who are happy about this, one of the things I ask is, can you name, without Google, can you name one trans athlete in your state competing with girls? Can you name one? And by and large, it's usually something like this. They can't name one. They have no clue who that person may be, whether or not they won anything. Now, the other part about it is they'll usually, lately we've been hearing a lot about Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas was a swimmer that won, I believe it was she won one championship in the swimming championships. There were 5 events. She won one of them. She finished dead last in another. And people talk about how unfair it was for her to be able to compete in the first place because she used to be she used to identify as a male, right? And how it was unfair for the young ladies to compete against her and that they had no shot, they had no chance. And again, she only won one event and she finished dead last in another. Apparently some of those girls whooped Leah's ass, right? Whooped her ass. But we didn't hear that, right? And one of the reasons why this story and stories like this come up, it reminds me of the trans bathroom laws from 2016. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember how petrified that, all of a sudden everybody was worried about whether or not trans people were going to the women's bathrooms, and we need to protect women in the bathroom, and we need to make sure that these trans people are going, because they're predatory. Some man can go dress up as a woman and he can go into these bathrooms and he can sexually assault these women because they think that it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. we haven't heard much about these transgender bathroom laws much at all lately because we weren't voting anymore. These sorts of stories start popping up during these election cycles. Same way that like in Republican circles, like we start talking about immigration and the mass immigration that's coming up from the border and shit. And then when the election season is over, we're not talking about immigration much anymore. Right? But here's the other thing, right? So I would ask people, like, yo, so do you know any girls? Like, do you know any like trans high school girls who are playing, you know, girl sports in at all? Like, do you know any of them? Nobody seems to know any of them, right? So what opportunities are your girls missing out on in, you know, Georgia? Like, how many trans girls are competing in Georgia at the high school level? Can you name one? You can't. Okay, so how many girls are missing out on an opportunity because a trans girl took an opportunity that was like slated for your gendered young lady, right? Oh, she didn't miss out on an opportunity. So what this sounds like to me is this is a solution in search of a problem, because you don't actually have a problem with trans girls competing in girls sports in high school in Georgia, right? So I made this point. I asked a friend of mine because he had made a post about it, and he said to me, as a matter of fact, I even invited him on the show. We could talk about it. I invited him on the show. He ain't got back to me though, right? But I invited him on the show. But he said, so you condone this bullshit, right? And I said, what is there for me to quote unquote condone? If you mean condone this bullshit as in trans girls should be able to compete against like cisgender girls, yeah, I think there are protocols in place that make it fair for everybody, right? That they have to be on hormones for a certain amount of time, that they have to be in like, you know, like so they're like the treatments that they on their hormone levels have to be a certain way, that they have to be in some sort of protocol. I'm not gonna even front like I'm all educated on the topic, because I'm not. Like, I don't know what the rules are, but generally speaking, when you see trans girls competing in girls sports, by and large, there are already rules in place that make it available so that they can compete against these other girls, right? And the other part about it is this: you mean to tell me that y'all think it's a shit ton of boys that are chomping at the bit to go through being a trans person so that they can compete in like sports? Y'all really want me to believe that? Y'all think it's boys chomping at the bit that change sex so that they can compete with girls in sports? If you believe that, I got some magic beans on sale, bro. 30% off. Real talk. If you believe that there's a bunch of little boys chomping at the bit to go like, oh, I suck at basketball with the fellas, man. Let me do this Joanna man shit, man. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna become a trans girl, and then I'll compete against girls, and then I can get all the scholarships. I can go get a scholarship to the University of Tennessee. Maybe North Carolina can fuck with your boy or fuck with your girl, and then I can get my scholarship that way, and then I can go to the WNBA where they're not paying the girls or they're not paying the women what they're worth. Right? It's every little boy's dream to be in the WNBA, man. Like, come on, man. It's every little boy's dream to be, you know, to be the leg on the Olympic relay team, the women's Olympic relay team. That's his dream, to be on the Olympic, like on that. All those little boys like can't wait to have this sex change or to become trans so that they can compete against the girls because they can't compete against the boys. It's bullshit, man. It's bullshit. And the other part about it is this, right? We act like we give a shit about women's sports, man. So many of these people are acting like they give a damn about women's sports. I remember, man, when we was talking about, we would talk about like the WNBA on the Beer and Chicken podcast. We would talk about that. And one of the arguments that I remember we found out, at least I found out, that NBA referees, right? NBA refs make more money than star players in the WNBA. Right. And my contention has always been, they're like, yo, the idea that the referees of NBA in the NBA making more money than the actual players of the WNBA is insane, considering the fact that nobody actually pays money to watch the fucking referees. They pay the money to watch the players. So why then, because the WNBA was a subsidiary of the NBA, weren't the players making more money? How, like, make that make sense to me? And by and large, most dudes would be like, well, shit, man, ain't nobody going to watch their games, man. Like financially, man, it just don't make sense, man. Ain't nobody going to watch their games. Ain't nobody going to like support them like that. Do you watch the WNBA? Do you go to their games? Do you pay money to go to their shit? Do you see they, like, when they win championships, how many people is at their parades? All that little shit, right? Y'all don't really care about their sports. So the idea that you need to protect these girls, you need to protect these women from the trans people, yet again, the fact that you're promoting that idea that we need to protect them from it's just another like tentacle on the octopus, so to speak. Just another way for you to come at another way for you to come at a marginalized group. And it's easy for us to come at a marginalized group like the trans community because it's not a lot of them. Most people don't really know a person who identifies as trans. And when they do, they don't necessarily understand. And a lot of folks simply aren't trying to understand anyway. Right? But this idea that we need to protect these girls from trans, as if trans people are taking over women's sports, is not a thing that is happening. The people who are promoting this shit, the people who are most happy about this shit, cannot name one trans athlete without the help of Google. If you ask them to name a trans athlete Olympian, they can't name one. Name an Olympian trans athlete gold medalist. They can't name one. And yet they're acting as though trans athletes are what we need to protect women from. You don't even want to pay them. You don't even want to pay women like, you know, what you would pay men in sports. Like the disparity in the compensation is crazy. Don't even want to pay them. But you want me to believe that young boys are going to go through the process of becoming a trans girl so that they can compete in athletics against other girls to dominate in these sports and get paid a quarter of what the dudes is getting paid? Make that shit make sense, man. Make that shit make sense. And so one of the things that like it bothers me, man, and you know, we've been talking about this idea of we've been talking about like the lack of leadership, especially like in our community, like black men, like in the black community, right? Because when I'm talking, I'm mostly talking to us, right? I'm mostly talking to us. And one of the things that I think is a failure on the behalf of black men is that, like, and I alluded to this on the last episode. When Black Lives Matter started up, one of the biggest contentions that a lot of brothers had was that there were 3 queer black women who were seen as leaders of that movement. And a lot of brothers were talking about how they were usurping the movement, that black men should be on the forefront of the movement. We were bearing the brunt of the police brutality, and we should be at the forefront of the movement, right? And so you had a lot of dudes who are out here saying that. You had a lot of dudes who were out here talking about they were out here like Black Lives Matter is aimed at destroying the black family. They want to destroy the black family. You saw a lot of Republicans talking that shit. You heard a lot of brothers saying that same stupid shit, right? You got that going on. So we want to be leaders. Then you've got a couple other different instances of like things that I feel like we just kind of been dropping the ball on. Like one of the things I think was very interesting was the conversation around Meg Thee Stallion, right? Meg Thee Stallion recently did an interview with Gayle King to talk about her interaction with Tory Lanez and him allegedly shooting her, and people not believing her, mostly dudes stepping up to say they don't believe her. Like I've listened to a couple podcasts where like, so do you believe her? Do you believe her? And I've seen a couple, you know, Kevin Samuels like niggas talking about how like, you know, the way she worded certain shit was like, you could tell she was lying and all this other shit, despite the fact that medical records say that like, yo, she had bullet fragments removed from her feet. Right. You got that going on. So but Meg Thee Stallion gets shot by, allegedly by Tory Lanez, and by and large, you got a lot of dudes who are out here like instead of stepping up in a way that like, yo, we should probably protect this sister. We got a whole bunch of dudes saying like, hey man, Tory Lanez need to be protected. We need to go out. You got, rappers going out working with him and mocking, Megan and everything else. Right. So you got that going on. Then we had, like even her having an interview with Gayle King set a lot of brothers off, because a lot of brothers have this idea that Gayle King has it out for black men, right? And how does Gayle King end up with that reputation? Gayle King ends up with that reputation because she had the audacity to ask Lisa Leslie the question about Kobe Bryant and his rape allegation in Colorado and how that could affect his legacy. And she had the audacity to have an interview with R. Kelly when R. Kelly was in the throes of, being caught up in another sex scandal just after the previous sex scandal with him dealing with underage girls. And somehow, some way, Gayle King is being marked as a person who's attacking black men for asking questions that I think a lot of motherfuckers really want the answer to anyway, right? People talk about these are the questions that need answers. These are the conversations that nobody's ready to have. And here is Gayle King trying to have the conversation, and now suddenly you niggas are like, nah, man, fuck that. Gayle King need to shut the hell up, right? Then there was another instance, right? Will Smith smacks the shit out of Chris Rock. Will Smith smacks the shit out of Chris Rock. And I'm one of those folks who was like, I ain't mad at him. You know what I'm saying? Because if you say something sideways in front of me about my wife, I might feel that urge to go ahead and, reach out and touch someone too. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that was the right way to handle the shit, but I understand, right? And it was amazing to me to watch brothers not only like disavow Will Smith. Like I've listened. It was wild to like listen to a brother talk about how he couldn't wait to go to an R. Kelly concert. The minute R. Kelly get let out of jail, he had a concert. I'm going to that bitch. And then going from that to saying that if Will Smith shit came on TV, he's turning the channel. If his kids were watching a Will Smith movie, he's turning it off. Like some kind of way, Will Smith's action was more egregious than R. Kelly's actions was of messing around with your underage girls, right? And then on top of that, the discussion became that Will Smith is a beta male under the thumb of his wife, that she controlled like she got some sort of control over him, and that she was the one who sicked Will Smith on Chris Rock, like Will Smith was a mindless dog. And afterwards, she threw him under the bus and said, I don't need anybody to protect me. I can protect myself. And so now Will Smith is no longer even accountable for his actions. We got to blame this woman for his actions. It's not that, it's not Will Smith who was doing this on his own accord and who felt like he was doing this in the protection of a person that he loved. It's this woman was in control of him, and he was weak for allowing this woman to control him, and she made him look like a sucker. Therefore, we can't accept him. Right? And now, you got this here. And I'm bringing all this up because I feel as though when brothers talk about they want to be leaders, especially be leaders within our community, how in the fuck can you lead people whom you don't respect? How do you expect those people to trust you as a leader if you don't respect them? How do you think that those people will allow you to lead them if you've shown yourself time and again to not be willing to protect them? How are you going to lead any group of people if you are willing to allow harm to be meted out against those who are most vulnerable within your community? How can you find yourself talking about you being a fucking leader if you can't even protect the people within your community? As a matter of fact, you join in on the degradation of the people within your community. And then they have the audacity to talk about holding motherfuckers accountable. Where's your accountability, bruh? Where is it? You want to lead people. You want to lead the community, but you can't be bothered with like protecting women in a real way. You want to lead the community, but you can't be bothered with protecting the LGBTQ community because somehow, some way that makes you look weak some kind of way. So you join in on the degradation. You join in on the marginalization of another group of people, which also just really doesn't make sense because you've been marginalized. You know what marginalization feels like. Why in the fuck would you do that to anybody else? It makes no sense, man. So as I've been watching, as I watch these sorts of things happen and I'm watching brothers, man, and how we talk about these issues, bro, I'll be like, yo, man, we are so fucking lost. We are so fucking gone. And it's been hard for me to really articulate it and put it all together. But I'm honestly in my heart of hearts worried that too many brothers just don't fucking get it and don't want to. And really don't want to. So this story gets amplified by black people in Atlanta, in Georgia, as yeah, this is what they should have been doing. It only makes sense. Why these trans girls trying to take away these opportunities from these real girls? You know, they say shit like that, right? And nigga, you don't know anybody who's doing that. You've never even seen an instance of it. In the one instance that you do know about, you don't even know that person lost 4 other fucking races and came in dead last in the last one. You don't even do the fucking bare minimum of looking the shit up. You got a supercomputer in your fucking pocket and you don't even look the shit up. So yeah, man, as I saw this story, bro, it just kind of crystallized a lot of things for me, man. Oftentimes, man, too many of us are willing to join in on the degradation and the marginalization of other people, man, even the most vulnerable within our community. Because truth be told, for all of you niggas that get mad when I start talking about, there are gay people that are black, it's because that's a fucking reality, man. It's a reality. Be mad all you want, but it's the truth. And y'all talk about the truth. Y'all talk about the truth. Now I'm the asshole because I'm telling you the truth, right? Is it my delivery? Does that make me the asshole? Because it's delivery, right? It's wild, man. It's wild. But as I saw that story, man, I was like, man, it's crazy to me to watch us join in on trying to marginalize another already marginalized group. It sickens me to see us do that. And so, yeah, man, we've been in the news a long time, but that's been the news. Yeah, but y'all know what time it is, y'all.
What in blue blazes is going on out here? Did this nigga just say blue blazes?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Our first story here in Blue Blazes has to do with none other than Jamal Bryant. As I said, man, we was going to probably have some more Kevin Samuel shit to talk about. But yeah, man, Jamal Bryant is in Blue Blazes. And the reason why Jamal Bryant is in Blue Blazes is because apparently Jamal Bryant used his time in the pulpit. To speak out on one Kevin Samuels. And he had some things to say about Kevin Samuels, and some people took offense to what the fuck he said. So we going to pull that video up so y'all can watch what he said. Hold on a second. Let me do this here so we can see what the good Reverend Pastor at the Newburgh Baptist Church had to say about one Kevin Samuel. Let's see what they talking about here. All right. Here we go. Check this out.
To me, I don't care what kind of man of God you claim to be. If you don't have an authentic woman of God in your life who can hold you into accountability, then your gift ain't going nowhere. Many of you all are quoting that a woman ought to submit. She ain't supposed to submit to any man. She's supposed to submit to a man who is submitted under God. If he ain't submitted, don't you buck your knee. You better stand right there until you find a man. You are listening to men who have no authority. How can a man say that you are of low value after 35? How can a man say that you do not have the level of traction of a high-powered man when that man has got to get a GoFundMe for his funeral? Y'all ain't saying nothing to me. You got to be in that place where you operate in the authority of God. Look at another sister around you. Tell them, it's not that I hate men. Come on, look at another sister. Say, I do not hate men. I just despise weak men. I despise cowardice men. I just ain't got time for men who are insecure about my gift. I'm not going to dummy down because of what God got me. I don't have to lower my standard. That man got to step all the way up to deal with a queen on my level.
Hey, man. Hey. Hey, man. I'm going to tell y'all this, man. I've been watching Greenleaf, man. I watched Greenleaf, man. Greenleaf was my shit, man. I love that little messy Christian show. That just Christians is messy too, man. That man just sat up there with he just sat up there from the pulpit, gave you some gossipy ass shit about a GoFundMe for. I don't even know if that's true. We don't even know if that's true. Does Kevin Samuels really need a GoFundMe for his funeral, man? Did that man really leave his people with no resources whatsoever to like send him away, man? Like they didn't do none of that. Cause that would be sad, man. We don't even know if there's any truth to that. But yeah, Reverend Jamal Bryant, he caught some flack on social media, and I know he caught some flack from some celebrities as well. One of the things that Jamal Bryant caught flack for was the fact that, like, yo, his ex-wife is a star on the Real Housewives of Potomac, and one of the things about that is he used to cheat on her quite often, man. And so many people were bringing up the fact that, like, you know, you might not necessarily be the greatest messenger on this if you were like constantly cheating on your wife, and you talking about how a woman should only accept a certain kind of man when your wife was accepting you doing all this fuck shit. You might not be the best messenger of this, right? But the other thing that kind of happened was I believe Omarion had something to say about the good Reverend Dr. Jamal Bryant. He had something to say, and as a matter of fact, there was an article written in Black Enterprise magazine about this shit. So we get this story here, like I said, from Black Enterprise. It said, even beyond the grave, Kevin Samuels continues to tap on the nerves of his most ardent critics, notably Pastor Jamal Bryant of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia. Bryant took to the podium and denounced the teachings of the late Samuels. Although he never publicly said his name, his congregation quickly deduced who he was referring to when he questioned. I mean, come on, man. Everybody knows. It says, how can a man say that you don't have the level of traction of a high-powered man when that man has to get a GoFundMe for his funeral? Supposedly, Samuel's friend, Melanie King, created the GoFundMe to help cover funeral expenses. Oh, shit. So, wait, let me see. Can I link to that? Nope, that's a story from another article. Okay, so that's okay. However, it was discovered she was a scammer, and his family claimed that they had never heard of her. The campaign is no longer available. Samuels was reportedly worth $4 million in owned luxury cars. Yet celebrities like R&B singer Omarion and Atlanta rapper T.I. have expressed online that the ongoing criticism of Samuels is unnecessary. It's sad when people can't respect the family after losing a loved one. He's no longer here. Why add insult to injury? What about the people that loved him, like his mom? Again, like I said earlier in the show, the way you lived will be reflected in how people talk about you when you pass on, man. That's what's happening. And while he was out here spitting that shit, his family didn't have anything to say then. So they gonna have to like grin and bear it when people have like feel a certain way about this. I'm just saying, like, it's tough. It's tough. But if you didn't have anything to say when he was out here spitting this shit, you can't really be mad at how people responding to how he went out. That's just the truth of it. It says they got to see this or hear about it. This is disgusting and whack as fuck. Regardless of his views, he didn't kill nobody. We all need to have more compassion. Like he did. Did he have compassion for the people he was talking to on his show, on his radio show, or what have you? Like, you expect these people to have compassion for him when that compassion wasn't extended to them. Like, come on, man. Says this is why I don't attend these fake places of worship. Respectfully, posted the Icebox Crooner on his Instagram page. T.I. also came to the defense of the controversial YouTuber and said he was fed up with the online discourse about Samuels, which he considered bullying. Oh my God. So what Kevin Samuels was doing, was it? Come on, man. Said this shit is fucking a travesty of justice. Not a travesty. Not a travesty of justice, said the rapper. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I ain't gonna let y'all bully this dead man. I mean, he ain't here for the bullying. So I mean, what come on, man. Be for real. We gonna let this man rest in peace. He added, whatever he did it, and he's gone. He got away with it. Fuck you. That's between him and God. Him and the Lord gonna have to deal with it. You ain't got no heaven or hell to put him in. I mean, they don't really, but I mean, like, again, where was all this when he was out here spitting that shit? Y'all mad at these people for having these responses, like, but you weren't saying anything when he was out here spitting that shit that generated the responses that he got. Like, make this shit make sense. He said he added, on May 5th, Samuels was found unresponsive on the floor of his Atlanta apartment, and the cause of death is not known, according to the New York Times. So yeah, man. Hopefully that's the last time we talk about, Kevin Samuels and shit on this show. But it's just weird, man. Like, watching people like get up in arms about how people are responding to that. It's like, yo, man, this is a reflection of who he was, man. That's all it is. That's all it is. Let's see. We got some comments here in the chat room. This is Jack says, doesn't that highlight how terrible men can be? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You put this up here a little while ago, so I don't know exactly what you're referring to at that time. But yeah, we terrible, bro. We terrible. Testosterone has to be at a certain level. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why like they take those and Jack's referring to the trans athletes in Georgia high schools. Like, the testosterone has to be at a certain level. And yeah, man, like they don't just let these, let boys go out here and just start competing. Like, especially if they identify as trans, they don't just let them go out there. These kids are going under treatments already. These kids are under hormone treatments and stuff. Their hormones, their testosterone has to be at certain levels before they're allowed to compete. And yet and still, you still have girls who are out here going out, competing against trans girls and winning, and in some cases dominating. It's not as if the girls don't have the ability, and it's not as if they don't have the like, some of the girls don't have the confidence that they can go out there and whoop anybody's ass. They don't give a fuck who's out there, right? But then you have laws or politicians who are trying to use this wedge issue, this cultural war ass issue, and drive up voter turnout. That's really what this is about. I want to make this very clear. When he signs this sort of legislation so close to a primary, and then a primary that leads to a general election, because I believe Kemp is up for re-election this year. These are the reasons why they do this sorts of thing. They're trying to get their base fired up so they can get you. They're trying to get them amplified to come out and vote on shit like this, because guess what? This Roe versus Wade shit probably gonna fire up a whole bunch of people on the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay. But I want y'all to be aware of this stuff. These stories about these trans laws stuff they only come around election time. They don't give a fuck about this issue, really. They don't care. So long as they can use your hatred of these people that you don't know and have very little experience with, so long as they can use that in order to like generate votes for themselves, they will do it. They do it all the time. And people are falling for the shit, hook, line, and sinker. It's like it's so transparent when you see it, bro. Like, come on, why can't you see what they're doing? Yeah, Lex is in the chat room. He says, to them, the community will thrive if only cis hetero black men are protected. Trickle down liberation, man. And that's, true. I mean, that's where that whole statement of, Rod got a lot of shit for saying black men are the white men of black people. And I know he said, he wasn't the first person to say that, but I remember he got a lot of shit for saying it. But like the reason why I believe he got so much shit for saying it because, it was truthful to a large degree, like you gotta wait for your rights. Once I get my rights, then we can fuck with your shit. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to like, hey man, how about we all get our rights at the same time? Like why I gotta wait for you to get yours before I can get mine? That's some bullshit. Yeah, man. But that's in that's in Blue Blazers. Another story that we got here in Blue Blazers. So how many of y'all was fucking around in the cryptocurrency shit, man?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. There's no wonder you get D's and everything.
I mean, I ain't calling y'all dummies. I'm just saying that I hope y'all did it judiciously. I hope y'all didn't invest a lot of money that you weren't willing to lose in the cryptocurrencies, man, because apparently the cryptocurrencies have like the markets have crashed like 98%, yo.
God damn!
Yeah, man. So we get the story here. This comes out of the Independent. It says the price of the Terra Luna cryptocurrency has fallen by more than 99%, wiping out the fortunes of crypto investors. Terra, which honestly I hadn't heard of until I read this article, though, like real talk. So there's so many different cryptocurrencies now is ridiculous. I remember before the only one I even like ever heard of really was Bitcoin, and then like what was that, Ethereum, and then like Litecoin, and then like Dogecoin like got real popular last winter and shit. It says Terra, which ranked among the top 10 most valuable cryptocurrencies, dropped below $1 on Wednesday, having peaked close to $120 last month. Other coins also appear to be in trouble amid a market-wide turndown. The majority of the losses were realized overnight, with a 98% price fall in the space of just 24 hours. The dramatic crash meant its market cap dropped from about $40 billion to just $500 million, resulting in unprecedented losses for investors in the leading cryptocurrency. I lost all my life savings, one member of the Terra Luna subreddit wrote. Had bought Luna at $85, not sure what to do. And I'm just going,
sick motherfucker, how far we done fell.
Man, makes me sick how far they done fell. Says another wrote that they had lost $15,000 after failing to sell their holdings for a substantial profit when it was trading above $100 last month. I should have cashed out when it was $100. Then I would have been up $25,000. Wrote Reddit user No Forever, but I got greedy, hoping to get more money so I can at least afford a down payment for a house for my family. I guess no house and savings then. This motherfucker lost his house. God damn, man. He lost the money for the house. The moderators of the forum, which had more than 44,000 members, pinned the post with helpline numbers to the top of the page after users voiced concerns about the consequences of the crash. I lost over $450,000. I cannot pay the bank. One user member of the forum wrote, I will lose my home soon. I'll become homeless. Leading crypto exchange Binance temporarily suspended withdrawals on Terra network at one point, meaning that even those who wanted to sell were unable to. The Cayman Islands-based exchange cited high volume of pending withdrawal transactions caused by network slowness and congestion. So, yeah, man, I'm like, for those of you who watched, for those of you who might not necessarily who didn't see that episode, Bomani Jones did a deep dive on like the cryptocurrency thing on Game Theory, that show he has on HBO, and like it is essentially become a way for rich people to fleece poor people out of more money, man. And it is like there's a lot of people who, like, especially during the pandemic, people were like searching for other ways to like make money, and like the cryptocurrency thing, people heard about Bitcoin, right? And they're like, yo, man, when Bitcoin first came out, it wasn't really worth a whole lot. But like now you look at like one Bitcoin is worth $64,000. And then you start hearing, the mayor of New York is being paid in Bitcoin, and certain athletes are taking their pay in Bitcoin, right? But these other coins are out there. And people wanted to get in on the ground floor because, like, yo, Bitcoin is worth $64,000 one per coin. Like, most people can't afford no shit like that. So what do? They're like, okay, so we got to get in on the ground. We got to get in on the ground on some of these other coins, right? And so, like, it was weird because, like, I remember I was on my Robinhood app, and they had just started like allowing you to invest in cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. And Dogecoin kind of came up, right? And I was like, oh, okay, so this Dogecoin thing, didn't even know what the fuck it was, just kind of fucking around on the Robinhood. And I was like, I threw $100 at the Dogecoin, right? Threw $100 in there, and I had like I want to say like 3,500 Dogecoin because they was trading at like less than a penny or some shit like that. It was a crazy amount of Dogecoin I had, right? And then suddenly Elon Musk started tweeting about the shit, and then everybody started hopping on the Dogecoin because Elon Musk was hopping on the Dogecoin, and suddenly the value of the Dogecoin started going up, started flying. I think it got up to like 35 cents at one point, right? And I'm like, oh shit, like 35 cents for the Dogecoin, and I got in at like less than a penny. My money went up, right? Or at least the value of it at the time, it went up. It was like at one point it was like at like $1,600. And I had it up, I only put like $100 up for the Dogecoin, right? Because I'm like, all right, I might, instead of buying a pair of shoes, I bought some Dogecoin. And I just held on to that $100 worth of Dogecoin that I bought that turned into like $1,600. But then slowly but surely, you know, like you had all these people hopping in, and it became apparent like, yo, like it started having these fluctuations, right? Like the Doge was having the fluctuations and shit. And I'm like, all right, so my $1,600 and turned into $1,300, or $1,300 and turned into like $1,100. And when it got down to $1,100, I'm like, you know what, man, I think I'm gonna just sell this shit off, right? I'm gonna just go ahead and sell this shit off right now, man. I ain't about to, because I mean, all I put in was $100 anyway. I'm up 1,000. Right, it's almost like gambling. I'm like, I'm up 1,000 right now. I could walk away with this 1,000, right? But people were like, yo, whenever the Dogecoin went down in value, they would buy more Dogecoin. Like, man, you got to buy the dip, like, right? We got to send the Dogecoin to the moon. And like, let me look, how much is Dogecoin going for right now? Let me see, how much is this shit going for? Hold on, just a second, y'all. What is Dogecoin trading for at this moment? It is going for, it's back to less than, it's like 8 cents, it's 8 cents a coin right now. Yeah. So, yeah. 8 cents. People lost a lot of money, man, because they kept buying those dips. Lost a lot of money. There was this one guy, they even did like I want to say NPR did a couple episodes on him because he was like the first Dogecoin millionaire and stuff. He was like a record, like he was trying to like, you know, be like a record producer or some shit like that. And he like took all his money and invested in the Dogecoin, became the first Dogecoin millionaire or whatever. And then like he kept buying the Dogecoin. He had his faith in the Dogecoin. Like, yo, his value is not nowhere near what it used to be, you know, now, because he bought into that. And like, honestly, like, when the Dogecoin thing and the Ethereum, all these different coins, man, it started coming out. You start hearing like people that you never heard talk about investing was suddenly like you know, fucking Warren Buffett out here, man. Just giving all sorts of stock tips and everything. Like, you get stock tips from everywhere, and you're like, nigga, I ain't never known you to be involved in no shit like that. But then everybody had these tips or whatever else. But I say all that to say, man, I hope that for those of you who invested in the cryptocurrencies, man, that you only invested what you could stand to lose. Don't be like one of these motherfuckers who like took his life savings and like can't, and now he can't buy a house, right? Don't be like this motherfucker who lost his house because he invested all his money into this shit, man. He can't pay the bank back. Like, don't be like these people. You get greedy and greedier and greedier, and now you end up with nothing. Because, like, from the looks of it, a lot of these look like pump and dump schemes, right? Like, you know, they pump up the price of this stock and get more and more people to buy into it and increase its value. And then they start selling off at a certain point. Once they get to a certain point, they start selling off. And then all the people at the bottom who can't get it out in time are left holding the bag. You know, it's fucked up, man. We got some comments here in the chat room. It says, William says, I've been watching the whole thing unfold on Spencer's, Cornelius, and CoffeeZilla's YouTube channels. The market full of grifters, shilling, pump, and dump schemes. Yeah, full of them. And Lex in the chat room says, I dabbled within the funny money, but got out when I saw how Elon Musk's silly tweets caused wild swings with Dogecoin. Yeah, man, that was the other thing, too, that was kind of crazy. Like, he would go on there and just say something, and then suddenly, like, we waiting on Elon to say something before the Dogecoin does anything. Like, why was this so dependent on this one motherfucker, right? And he got some silly shit going on now with Twitter. They were talking about he got his Twitter. He's supposed to be buying Twitter and it's on hold right now. Like, nigga, you can't for regulatory reasons, you can't just like put your shit on hold. But they thinking he's doing some shit with like some stock manipulation and maybe he can get it. Like he got the shit on layaway, but he hoping to get the sale price now. He's hoping he got Twitter on layaway, but he hoping to get the sale price, man. Hey, man, Kmart told me I can get the sale price. If it goes on sale while it's in layaway, I should be able to get the price that the layaway, the sale is. It's 20% off on them jeans. I should get the 20% off. And I think that's what Elon trying to do, man. Real talk. Lex also says people were taking out real loans to bet on cryptocurrency, and they're about to default because the value. Yeah, man. People just were not smart, bro. We're not smart with it. And I hope that some of them come out on at least on a halfway decent end on the other side of this, but it's not looking good for him, man. Real talk. But that has been Blue Blazes.
In blue blazes is going on out here. Did this nigga just say blue blazes?
Yeah, I had another story for Blue Blazes. We were gonna talk about Shaun King being a scammer and like people not getting their clothes from that new clothing line he had or whatever. But we're not gonna talk about that shit. I don't care. I just don't feel like talking about it. I just don't feel like talking about it. We're going to go on Proud to be an American now.
That I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Yeah, that's enough of that shit. It's Proud to be an American time here at the Spann Report Podcast, man. Our first story here, Proud to be an American, has to deal with one fact that Texas Governor Greg Abbott wants to challenge, quote unquote, challenge free public education to children of undocumented immigrants, right? So when I first saw this story, it wasn't labeled this way. They were just talking about how Texas Governor Greg Abbott wanted to challenge public education, like the availability of public education, period. That's how that's how it was first presented to me. But we're going to read this story here. This comes out of Business Insider. It says that Texas Governor Greg Abbott said that he thinks his state will resurrect and challenge a 40-year-old Supreme Court decision requiring states, to offer free public education to all children, including undocumented immigrants, the Austin American-Statesman first reported. The Supreme Court case in question, Plyer versus Doe, was brought to the court after Texas passed a law prohibiting the state from using public funds to educate children who came into the country illegally. The Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 decision in 1982 that the state's actions violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause and struck down Texas's law. Abbott's comments came during a right-wing radio talk show, Joe Pag's show, after the host complained about the burdens on communities that he argued immigrants create. The challenges put on our public systems is extraordinary, Abbott replied. Texas already long ago sued the federal government about having to incur the cost of the education programs in a case called Plyer versus Doe, and the Supreme Court ruled against us on the issue about denying, or let's say Texas having to bear that burden. Abbott continued, I think we will resurrect that case and challenge this issue again because the expenses are extraordinary and the times are different than when Plyer versus Doe was issued many decades ago. Now, here's the thing that I think is very interesting about what the fuck he's saying right now, right? Texas is one of those states where they are going to they've already began to hinder a woman's access to an abortion, right? And Texas says that these immigrants are creating an undue burden on the system, like to educate these kids. Like there's an undue burden that these kids have, right? So are you really pro-life? And the reason why I say, are you really pro-life is because, okay, so what do you do when these kids get here? Whether they be of someone who was born here and is a citizen, or whether it's someone who is an undocumented immigrant or the child of an undocumented immigrant. You say you're pro-life. So why are you so against taking care of the children that are here, right? And you want to create more children so those children can be here. So why then do you look at this as a burden to educate the children that are here? Right? Make this shit make sense. They keep talking about how they are about the sanctity of life and that they want, these children should have the right to live and all these other things. But like once they get here, man, they on their own. once they get there, they're on their own. Like the other part that I always thought was like kind of wild, like weird about this whole push for this pro-life thing, that at least quote unquote pro-life, is that I can remember like the Texas, I believe it was like the Texas, whether it was the lieutenant governor, I believe it like was the Dan Patrick, or it might have been their attorney general. I can't remember which one of those dudes it was, but when the pandemic first kind of started and like, you know, we shut down, like a lot of states kind of shut down economically and things like that. People were like, we had the shelter in place orders and whatnot to like lower the spread of COVID. And a lot of these Republican, led, legislatures, a lot of these Republican led governorships, a lot of these Republican led states were advocating openly for the reopening of the economy. They wanted people to get back to work. They wanted people to get back to like, producing for these businesses and shit. Like they were basically out here for the business interests. And I can remember listening to people talk about, maybe grandma needs to sacrifice her life for the betterment of the economy, and then like they would willingly do so. Like they were talking about old folks as if old folks were like expendable. Like, all right, they didn't already live. They like, let's get them the fuck up out of here so we get this economy rolling again. These people are not fucking pro-life, man. They are not pro-life. They don't give a fuck about you once you're here. This is all about like control. And so now he's openly advocating like, yo, man, we shouldn't have to educate these kids. Again, if you don't have to educate the kids, if you don't have an educated populace, you can lead that populace wherever the fuck you want them to go because they don't know what's going on. It's a continuation of that. Man. Real talk. So yeah, Greg Abbott and Proud to be an American. Fuck out of here. Another story that we got here, Proud to be an American. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, because yes, it's fucking Florida. But Governor Ron DeSantis signs legislation proclaiming November 7th as Victims of Communism Day. And to that, I just why, man? Just why? But we get this story here. This comes out of newsforjacksonville.com. So is there a video attached to this? Let me see if there's a video attached to this, because this looks like a local news outfit. Okay, so there is. Let me pull this video up so you guys can watch right along with me here in the chat room. Hold on just a second. Let me do this here. All right. And all right. Here we go. Let's see what they talk about.
Florida's governor signed 2 bills into law today. Ron DeSantis says it's about honoring victims of communism. One element of the new laws involves instruction, something that survivors say is crucial. From the Miami-Dade College campus today, Governor Ron DeSantis signed 2 bills that bring the impact of communism to light. He spoke about communist countries like China and Cambodia, but it was impossible to miss the connection between Florida and Cuba. The signing ceremony took place in Miami's Freedom Tower.
Who didn't know that he was going to really be talking about Cuba? And again, all of this is an election year. This motherfucker is up for re-election this year. This is why these things are coming out. I want people to pay attention to this, man, for real.
From 1959 to 1974, more than 650,000 Cubans came to the United States to flee the oppressive communist regime of Fidel Castro. Many of them came to South Florida, either by plane or by boat, and once they landed, they would be taken right here to the Freedom Tower, where they would receive assistance and began their new life in the United States.
Interestingly enough, they don't necessarily talk about those people, those immigrants coming over here and being like that being an invasion of the southern border, right? They never talk about Cuban Americans. They never talk about Cubans coming from, from there to America and talking about them as being like undocumented and all these other things. They do this with Mexicans a lot. And I don't quite know why. Right? I don't quite know why. I mean, outside of like, there's a lot of white passing Cubans who vote Republican. So maybe that's why. But honestly, like it's kind of weird. Like the geopolitical, cultural, diasporic reasonings as to why they treat this group differently than they treat the others.
The bill signed by the governor established November 7th as Victims of Communism Day. High school students learn about infamous regimes in communism. 3 roads will also be designated for 3 different Cubans who fought back against the Castro regime. And Freedom Tower gets $25 million from the state to complete structural repairs and invigorate the museum.
When you think of landmarks in American history, yes, of course, we think of things like the Statue of Liberty and places like Ellis Island, but the Freedom Tower really belongs right there alongside them. And so I think this tower is a reminder that freedom is not free.
This bill is so important because what you don't recognize and don't learn about, you tend to repeat. And so always keeping front and center that
what you don't recognize, she kind of hit it on the head a little bit there where like you risk repeating it. This is part of the reason why they don't want you to learn that these things have happened before, because they plan on repeating a lot of this shit, right? It's ironic that she's saying that in this sense, but yo, it's kind of crazy, right? That like, yo, she's saying that in a time where, like, take for instance, in a time where they're talking about critical race theory and that we can't learn certain histories because it indoctrinates our kids to believe a certain way, and it indoctrinates our kids into all these political ideologies. And yet here you are, essentially pointing out a political ideology and framing it as though it's inherently bad. And also keep in mind, they talk about communism and they talk about Democrats. Essentially, they talk about Democrats and how how democratic policies are communist, socialist, sort of legislation. And so they use these terms because these people, Cubans, like, there's a large, Cuban population in Florida. Like, they're coming from a regime where a lot of them, like, they left under dire straits, right? So if you can tell these people were like, those folks over there represent something similar to Castro, like, and now you've demonized an entire group of folks to these people. They're like, oh, they like Castro, then fuck them. And then they vote against, whatever policies may have been beneficial to them because they believe that these things are like Castro. It's like, yo, they just essentially like casted Democrats as though they are an extension of the thing that they were running away from.
there are victims of communism, some that you will never see.
This is our Ellis Island in this community, and we will keep it. And this goes out to every single one of you who are here, who have fought this fight, and those who are no longer with us that have fought the fight.
We wanted to know, why was November 7th chosen as Victims of Communism Day? Well, that date in 1917 is when Vladimir Lenin led the revolt in Russia, widely considered the start of the worldwide movement of communism. Speakers at today's news conference say that movement has caused suffering that should never be forgotten. All right. So, yeah, man, that's in Proud to be an American, man. Our last story here that we have in Proud to be an American. OAN, One America News. They were one of those far right news channels that Donald Trump went to. That they went further right than even Fox News, man. They like, yo, Fox News ain't being righty enough, so we got to come up with another outlet that we can be even more right. And OAN was one of those networks, man. It was like essentially a propaganda outfit. A lot of the news stories that they would promote were like largely discredited. And this was an instance where they had to go on air and admit that the stories that they were spreading about widespread voter fraud were untrue. They were being sued. It was a defamation suit. They settled this defamation suit, and they had to go on air to basically admit to their wrongdoing. So we get this story here. This comes out of yahoonews.com. It says the right-wing cable network, One America News Network, on Monday ran a pre-recorded 30-second segment acknowledging that there was no widespread voter fraud by Georgia election workers in the 2020 presidential election. The segment appears to be part of a recent settlement related to a defamation lawsuit brought against the network by two such workers. The segment notes that an investigation by state officials into unsubstantiated claims of widespread voter fraud made by ex-President Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani turned up nothing. The results of this investigation indicate that Ruby Freeman and Wendrea Shea Moss did not engage in ballot fraud or criminal misconduct in narrated states.
A legal matter with this network and the two election workers have been resolved to the mutual satisfaction of the parties through a fair and reasonable settlement, the voiceover adds. Freeman and her daughter, Moss, say they were harassed online and in person after baseless rumors began circulating online, due in part to content published by the conspiracy website The Gateway Pundit, which the pair also sued. In January 2021, when Trump pressured Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to try to find votes to overturn the state's election results, he mentioned Freeman's name 18 times. Freeman was also visited by a publicist for Kanye West, who threatened her in an effort to extract a confession about committing election fraud. This is another reason I do not fuck with Kanye West. I don't listen to none of his shit much anymore, man. And if it weren't enough, video of the pair doing their jobs was hyped up by Rudy Giuliani and Sean Hannity and falsely claimed that it showed blatant, clear, obvious fraud while speaking to Georgia State House Republicans about the video during the Zoom meeting in December 2020. Giuliani at one point can be heard saying we should try to get this on Newsmax and OAN. So yeah, man, those women had to deal with people coming at them, like their characters being besmirched, man. The one thing about this though is that at this point, the people who like really believe the lie that the election was fraudulent, that Donald Trump's election, like this, that it was stolen from Donald Trump, those people are still going to be conditioned to believe that, whether this story comes out or not, only because like they will look at this and be like, well, they had to say that. You know what I'm saying? Not that they were saying it because it's true. They just believe it. Like they're probably just saying this because they had to say it legally for whatever reason. But they're not going to put it together like, yeah, because there really was no voter fraud for real. So, yeah, man, that's been proud to be in America. It's a fucking dumpster fire.
That I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Yeah, but y'all know what time it is.
The champ is here. The champ is here. The champ is here. The champ is here.
All right. Champ of the Week time here at the Spann Report podcast, man. And our champ of the week this week here at the Spann Report is an anonymous donor, man. An anonymous donor is the champ of the week this week. And the reason why this anonymous donor is the champ of the week this week is that there was this, it was a rent-to-own scam that was happening here in the city of Detroit. And there was a woman by the name of June Walker who was under the threat of basically losing her home because of this rent-to-own scam. She had been renting, like paying monies to rent the house to pay it off, and she believed that she was working towards owning a home. Come to find out, she really didn't. And so we get the story here from Yahoo News. It says, a Michigan senior citizen embroiled in a fake rent-to-own house scam and as a result faced eviction in 2021 will now have the opportunity to buy the dream home. The grandmother, who worked with her local housing court to come up with an agreement, will use donations from an anonymous donor to purchase the home flat out. Last year, the 65-year-old was endangered by being put out of her house she thought was her home. She reportedly started paying $550 a month in 2019 to a man who reportedly claimed to work for her landlord. That landlord had offered her a land contract with an option to buy a lease that was tailored specifically to fit her needs according to her income on what she thought was a $15,000 house. Believing it was hers, she poured thousands of dollars from her savings and her disability check into upgrades in the home. The fake agreement suggested her last payment, supposedly giving her full ownership of the house, was in April 2021. But that didn't prove to be the case. When I made the last payment, she reflected, I was running around the house just thanking God I was a homeowner. In June 2021, she realized she was being scammed after the actual owner of the house, a Florida-based real estate company called Bocafe LLC, contacted her with an eviction notice. Walker had been a victim of a con job that took advantage of people with compromised credit and low income. Her plight made national news as platforms like NBC News and Outlier Media launched an investigation into finding the culprit of this manipulation. A GoFundMe was set up for her with the aim of raising $25,000, but stalled at $1,731. Laura Jackson, who set up the page, begged people to contribute, saying in December, the time is drawing near to send funds to Miss June. Please share or consider donation as the cause will go before the courts in early 2022. 10 months later, with no real movement in the case, Walker was still afraid of becoming homeless and losing the home for which she had prayed. This week, her prayers were answered. Bocafe, who bought the house in 2021 for $25,000, filed an agreement in Detroit's 36th District Court, housing court, pledging to upsell the house to Walker for $45,000, earning them a $20,000 profit. Walker will not have to come out of pocket for this, as the mortgage will be paid in total by an anonymous donor from Texas who used to live in Detroit and learned about her misfortune on the news. Provided the deal goes through, she will have the deed to her house by June 30th, man. So shout out to that Good Samaritan, man, for helping that lady to stay in her home. So many people were, being taken advantage of during the pandemic. We talked about the funny money with the Dogecoin and everything else, man. A lot of folks were being taken advantage of. Not to even mention like the unemployment scamming and all that other things that kept people who really needed that unemployment money from getting it. It was like so much shit going on during the pandemic. But man, shout out and kudos to that anonymous donor for helping this woman stay in her home, man. Real talk. You are the champ of the week this week here at the Spann Report Podcast, and we salute you, whoever you may be, man. Real talk. But we've been on here for a little while now. I've been running my mouth for 2 hours, and I've been by myself. I'll be damned. But it is time for us to get on up out of here. But of course, before we do, I need to remind you guys how to get in touch with us here at the Spann Report Podcast and let your voice be heard, man. Go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. You can also email us here at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Go ahead, leave us those emails. And of course, those emails will get read here and applied to live as well. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there. Chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, hit me up on our website, www.thespannreport.com. You can go there, watch replays of the show. You can vote in the polls when we decide to put those polls up. You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And of course, we really appreciate every dime over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network, man. Real talk. Man, it is time for me to get on up out of here. Shit, I got to eat and then get ready for bed because I got to go to work tomorrow, man. I got to get to it. But I will talk to you guys again soon. But until next time, fam. Peace.